All right, everybody, welcome back to a fiery start to the 81st episode of the Facts Over Feelings podcast. We were already arguing off air, so today is going to have a lot of disagreement, a lot of fire, a lot of energy from me and Eden, especially. We are going to give Suns fans a reality check on the, at least I am. I'm going to take the bad cop, but with that being said, I am joined by Ryan and Jack once again. We're going to talk some NBA and some more NBA. So let's get it started. Fellas, which series should we dive into? Should we start with our Suns or should we move on to a series that's already finished?
Well, I was gonna say, I want to start with my series, but what, Jack? You want to do yours?
I think we should start with Ryan's. I like Ryan.
All right.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Look, Trevor, we're gonna talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Memphis Grizzlies. And look, I'm just gonna say this series has gone exactly as I thought it would. You know, Trevor, I had a bad year last year with my NBA predictions. I feel like I'm getting I'm doing a little better this year. You know, Minnesota has given Memphis a really hard time. And it's exactly what I said would happen. Memphis has not proven themselves in the playoffs. And Ja Morant, their superstar, the most improved player of the year. Look at this guy. What an absolute disaster he's been in their 2 away games, games 3 and 4. I mean, like, the guy was 5 for 18 in game 3 and 4 for 13 in game 4. And granted, he's had a lot of assists. I think he's up to 26 assists in those 2 games, something around there, which is fantastic. But like, when you draw 3 defenders, you're going to get a lot of assists, right? And that's what happens. He actually kicks out sometimes. And he has a guy on his team who I think probably should have won Most Improved Player of the Year if it wasn't for Darius Garland, in Desmond Bane. And this guy's been a fantastic. I just want to say, like, he's really, really good. I want to shout him out because, I mean, in game 4, he had 34 points, 8 threes. Game 3, he had 7 threes, 26 points. I mean, he's been fantastic. So I'm glad he's finally getting a little bit of recognition on like a national level because he's been really good all year. He's actually improved a lot. And I don't know. I mean, Memphis has just struggled. Really, Ja Morant's just struggled. And lucky, Bane popped off in game 3 and they came back and won. Had a massive comeback because if they didn't win that game, they'd be in big trouble right now, down 3-1. So lucky they came back to win that game. I also wanted to say Minnesota's been good, but I feel like they could be even better. Like, I know they're tied 2-2 in the series, but they should be up 3-1. Like, their head coach made a massive mistake in game 3, he didn't call a single timeout. And Memphis went on a 24-2 run. Not a single timeout. I was sitting there and I was texting these guys and I was like, this is actually like stupid. Like, I could not believe it. Like, you have to call a timeout there. You're a young team at home. Just call a timeout, regroup a little bit, go back out there, get a momentum swing, get the crowd back in it. Like, I was shocked. So that was mismanagement by their head coach. But other than that, they've been really good. Obviously, Pat Bev's like the heart and soul of the team, being, as antagonistic as he is. But, everyone else has stepped up. Anthony Edwards has been nice in his playoff games. Karl-Anthony Towns finally stepped up in game 4 at 33 points. Yeah, I mean, their bench is playing decently well. I mean, I think Taurean Prince is the only guy that's been pretty bad for them. Malik Beasley, Naz Reid, they've stepped up in a few games this series. If they keep doing that, they could push this. They could even win the series in 7 games. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. But I think Memphis still wins the series just because they have home court advantage coming down the stretch here. But it's been a great series, and Ja has to step up because he's not playing like an all-star starter, and he's not playing like the most improved player. And I'm annoyed that he got that. But anyway, Trevor or Jack, when do you want to go ahead, give your take on this series? What's going to happen here? Who's going to win the series?
I'd love to jump in because I wanna slow down this Ja Morant slander real quick. You look at game 3, he doesn't shoot well in either game 3 or 4, to be honest, but he's making plays for his teammates and he's doing everything else on the floor to help his team win a game. He had a 16, 10, and 10 triple-double in game 3, and then he also had almost a triple-double in game 4. He's keeping his teammates involved, he's getting them involved, and while offensively he's struggled shooting the ball a little bit, I think he's doing everything else well to make up for the rest, that part of his game that struggled a little bit. But anyways, aside from that, calm down on Ja Morant a little bit. This has been a great series. It's been fun. It's been high flying, super energetic, and you love how both crowds, it's been a few years since Minnesota's been in the playoffs. Memphis was there last year, but unrealistically as an 8 seed, not going to win that series. And you just look at, both of these fan bases are passionate. Both of these fan base, it's just been a lot of fun basketball to watch. And I think if the Timberwolves are going to pull this out and win this best of 3 series that remains ahead of them, it's going to come down to Karl Anthony Towns. And here's why. You see in game 3, even with the big lead, Karl Anthony Towns gets in foul trouble. He ends the game with about 8 points. If you look back to the previous games, game 1 and 2, as well as the play-in game, so take that 4-game sample size, I believe he was in foul trouble and limited minutes in 3 of those 4 games, and he didn't even score double digits in 2, maybe even all 3 of them. So he's the guy, he's the most important guy on this team for Minnesota in order to keep them involved as well. Him and Anthony Edwards have been their 2 best players. D'Angelo Russell's been kind of hot and cold, not necessarily there and showing up every game. But I think, Trevor said it at the beginning of the series on the podcast, I believe. If you get 2 of those 3 guys to show up every game, this is going to be a series. And Karl Anthony Towns can't do that if he's off the floor in foul trouble like he's shown in his playoff career. So I think that's the biggest key indicator for Minnesota. And realistically, I think if you look at these 2 teams, they're the team with more talent, which I didn't necessarily think at the beginning of the series. But if you're looking at it from the top down, I think they have more talented players than Memphis, and that's the reason that I believe this is a series. But Towns has to figure out his foul trouble and stay on the floor if they're going to win 2 of these next 3.
Still feel good that Memphis wins the series?
It's going to go to game 7, like Ryan said.
Okay.
I am just along for the ride. I'm just having a great time. This has been my favorite series to watch, in all honesty. So I just hope we get as much of it as possible.
Trevor?
I mean, I don't have too much to add. I think you guys covered it really well. I'm just going to echo Eden's point a little bit more about Karl Anthony Towns. You look at the 2 games that Minnesota's won. He played 43 minutes in game 1, had 29 points, 13 rebounds. Did I say he already played 43 minutes? I think I did. Anyways, moving on to games 2 and 3, they lost 33 minutes in game 3, 28 minutes in game 2, a combined 23 points in those 2 games. And as we know, Minnesota loses both of those games. We head to game 4, 33 and 14 on 42 minutes from Karl Anthony Towns. The Timberwolves win. So I completely agree with Jack. I think Karl Anthony Towns is 100% the X factor in who's going to win this series. If he shows up, I think Minnesota's going to win it. And another great point by Jack. I think Minnesota's number 2 and number 3 are better than Memphis's 2 and 3, right? Like D'Lo and Anthony Edwards especially Anthony Edwards, has really shown up in these playoffs. And I think Minnesota's top 3 players are better than Memphis's top 3 players. You could argue that the Grizzlies role players are better than Minnesota's, but it's not by that much of a margin, and they really haven't shown up all that much, at least sparingly, in this series. So for me, I said it at the beginning, I thought Memphis would coast. I wasn't very high on Minnesota. I think it's more about we're underestimating Minnesota than overestimating Memphis. But I did say, and I've said this multiple times, and you guys will agree with me, I said, and Shaq said it on Inside the NBA on TNT, he goes, how will Memphis handle the pressure of expectation, right? They've never had to feel that kind of pressure. Last year, the 8 seed, no one expects them to do anything. This year, they kind of catch everybody by surprise. It's all well and good. They're winning a bunch of games with or without Ja. Now you're in the playoffs. Now you're playing a young and hungry team like Minnesota with a lot of passion, a great fan base. How are you going to respond with expectation? The people were picking these guys to come out of the West. And I don't think Memphis has handled that very well. I think Ja Morant has struggled offensively. I get he's trying to contribute in other ways. But when he's on the floor, he needs to give you 25 to 30 a night. He averaged 27 over the course of a season. He needs to be 25 to 30. 4-13 shooting, 11 points is unacceptable. I think he needs to be better. And the issue that he's running into, and it's similar to Russell Westbrook, is he doesn't have a reliable jump shot yet. He's super athletic, gets to the rim, has a good floater, good passer, but he's not a good three-point shooter, not a great mid-range shooter. He needs to develop that in his game. He's really young. I'm sure he will. But the Timberwolves are collapsing on him and being physical with him, and those are calls that he would get in the regular season that he's not getting in the playoffs. So I think he needs to improve on his game. I think we jumped the gun on him being a superstar a little early, but that's an argument for another day. And I think the credit goes to Minnesota. They've really played well. They've stepped up their defense in this series. And this is anyone's series. I don't know who's going to win. I was wrong. I thought Memphis would win this easily. I think Minnesota could steal this. I really do. But
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I really, really like your point before we move on about Ja and his jump shot, because I was going to say the exact same thing. That's the one thing missing, right? So he shoots okay from three. I think it's actually almost 35%, which like is okay.
it's okay.
But you don't trust his jumper at the end of a game, in an elimination game or a playoff game. Do you trust Ja's jumper the way you trust Luka Doncic or Devin Booker at the end of a game? No. Or Jason Tatum, right? No, you trust those guys to make a clutch three at the end of the game. I don't really trust Ja to hit a three at the end of the game right now. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because that's definitely the one thing that's missing. And I also am glad you brought up Russell Westbrook kind of in a light comparison. And it's like, look, I just want to say the Grizzlies were what, 20-5, 20, something like that without Ja. It's just going to be interesting to see Ja's career trajectory, because he might not be that far off from Westbrook, where he's a max player. He's a superstar for a time, but how much is he impacting winning for the team? And look, we talked about this a little earlier in the year, Trevor, you and I, in a past podcast, like how much does Ja impact winning for this Grizzlies team? And we'll see down the road, but it's just interesting that you brought that up, because that's something kind of just watching, how successful are the Grizzlies with him there? Are they as successful without him? I'm interested if they ever have a playoff game without him, how will they fare? I'm really interested to see. I don't know if we'll get that this year, but I'm interested to see down the road. And I thought that was, kind of an interesting point you brought up, but I don't know Jack, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say quickly, it's going to be a long night when Patrick Beverley is hitting threes. And that's just if you're going to leave one guy open on that team, it's going to be him. And if he makes them, then you kind of throw your hands up. He's like the Draymond Green of their team, not in the same sense, but on the offensive side, you're like, this is the guy we're going to let shoot. And if he does, so be it.
He's a decent
and
shooter.
I'm looking at these numbers. They shoot, as a team, they shot 50% from three last game. Not to say that Memphis shot poorly, because they shot really well, but you get 4 of 6 from three from Patrick Beverley and 4 of 4 from Jordan McLaughlin.
That ain't happening again.
It's going to be a long night for any team that faces that. But anyways, I'm excited. This is going to be a great series, high-flying offense. I'm excited for the next 2 or 3 games.
What's funny you didn't – sorry, Ryan. What's funny is I wonder what the odds would have been on 4+ threes with Pat Bev and Jordan McLaughlin parlayed. That would have probably won me some serious money. But
you could have flown out to Philly for the next Suns game.
For real. But that's a discussion for another time. Ryan, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say one more thing. Trevor, you brought up, I think it was a couple of weeks back when we were talking about these series, that kind of the clock is running low on the Grizzlies season, because they'd run into Golden State next series. And I just want to say, I just wanted to bring that up, because it's true, right? This series is great. It's probably the best series we've seen so far, and it will probably be the best series in the first round. But both of these teams are just on the clock. We know after watching Memphis
They're not
here,
beating Golden State.
right? After watching Memphis here, they will not be they won't beat Golden State. It might be in 5 or 6. It might be in 5. Honestly, but I just wanted to bring that up because it's a great series and whatever. But they're gonna have to run into Golden State, and it's not.
I'd rather be playing the Suns right now if we're being real.
I mean, that's exactly right. I 100% agree. And with that, look, we can move on to another series. I don't know what series you want to move on to. Jack, do you want to?
I want to go to mine, because I want to save our Suns discussion for the end. If that's good with you.
That'll be an extended one for sure.
Oh yeah.
So go right ahead.
Anyways, the series that I thought was going to be the best of the postseason, the Boston Celtics and the Brooklyn Nets, and boy was I wrong. This is the only sweep of the first round, I believe. I think they're the only team up.
Yep.
Swept. Everyone else is still playing.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say a couple things before I get into kind of the main part of it. And while this was a sweep, it wasn't that it wasn't a competitive series. If you look at all 4 of those games, Brooklyn was in all 4 of them. The most that they lost a game by was 7 points in this entire series.
Wow.
So, they were right there. They could have won a game, especially game 1. Kevin Durant falls asleep and Tatum gets a layup at the bucket to win that game. And I think just from there, they were just never able to recover and get over that hump of being right there and just not able to put it away. But you look through it. First of all, Boston's defense is scary, and it's scary to watch. And I know we were talking about this off the air. yesterday or 2 days ago with the Miami Heat and what they've been doing to Trae Young. But to see what Boston did outside of today, even though Durant took a lot of shots, he still had 39 points. He took it on 31 shots. But you look at what they did to Kevin Durant and just how they shut him down this entire series. I didn't think that was possible before this series started. I hadn't seen anyone do it on Durant in years. And that's exactly what you got from Boston. Grant Williams, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, whoever it was. Everyone on that team can defend. And that was just something completely different to watch. Ime Udoka, former assistant under Steve Nash in Brooklyn last year. I just think they completely, not shocked me, but they completely surprised me with how dominant they were on the defensive side of the ball. And I didn't think you would be able to slow down KD and Kyrie like they did in this series. And lastly, let me get into Ben Simmons real quick because
I'm glad.
This is Stephen A. Smith said it on ESPN, I think yesterday. The most pathetic basketball player in today's game, maybe ever. Like, this dude, 2 weeks pain-free, ramping up to play in tonight's game at home, season debut, hasn't played all year. And he walks in the practice facility down 3-0 the next morning. My back hurts. I can't do it. Like, if this series is 2-1 and they win that close game in game 3, do you think Ben Simmons plays today? And
Yes.
My second question is, do you think Ben Simmons is a 4-point difference between the Boston Celtics and the Brooklyn Nets in this game? The Nets lose by 4 today. I don't know how much Ben would give you. I don't know what he'd do. But defensively, what he would bring for about 15 minutes even, I think he's a 4-point difference, and Brooklyn would end up winning this game. Now, we can play that speculation game and whatnot, but
I think the series
the
would be
fact of the matter
tied at
is,
some point.
right, the fact of the matter is Ben Simmons is absolutely a joke. And the fact that Daryl Morey flipped him for James Harden, and you look at them now, Harden's been kind of up and down recently in the last couple of games of this postseason, but you were getting nothing out of Ben Simmons anyways, and now you flip him for James Harden. I think that is the winningest move in history, to be honest. I want to know what you guys have to say about the series, but the fact that happened and you get this from Ben Simmons, and now he's not Philly's headache anymore, he's Brooklyn's headache. So I just had to rip into him as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back. I was the only one on this podcast to say Boston would win this series. I didn't think it'd be sweet. I thought Brooklyn would at least show up in one game and win a game. I said Boston in 6, but whatever. So I was right about Boston. And what did I say about Boston? That was the difference. I like their role players better, and I like how they can defend. And I think that's what really decided the series. They got stops when they needed stops, and big plays were made by their players. You know, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Al Horford all made big plays in this series. So for me, I'm not entirely surprised Brooklyn lost. I am surprised that it was a sweep. I'm very surprised in how KD and Kyrie played. And you look at outside of game 1 from Kyrie Irving, they were both awful in this series. And
I mean, KD was good tonight.
I don't even think KD was good tonight.
tonight.
He was inefficient, and at least he was aggressive, right? He got his points, but he wasn't efficient. And if you're Boston and you're like, hey, he got 39 points, but it took him 31 shots to do so, and he turned the ball over 4 times, I'd take that. And that was his best game of the series by far. That's what's scary, is that was his best performance in this series. I'm with Jack. I'm just incredibly impressed with how well they defended Kevin Durant, because I don't think I've ever seen Kevin Durant struggle like that for a whole series, right? Like, he struggled in the past for a game or two, but he's figured it out. In this series, he didn't figure it out once, and now it's over, and he's going to be thinking about all season, you know, will Ben Simmons actually play for us next year? What's Kyrie going to do?
Kyrie,
you know, am I going to need to get another vaccine? Like, I have no idea. So I want to touch on one other thing. Steve Nash. I want to touch on that.
Yes.
I want to open the floor to you guys. I'm going to defend Steve Nash with this.
Oh my.
He has walked into the most chaotic NBA coaching situation I think I've ever seen. Now, look, part of that is not his fault, right? COVID-19, you know, he can't control that with players getting ill and whatnot, but Kyrie not getting vaccinated, not having him for most of the season, trading James Harden, not having Ben Simmons. What else was there? You know, bringing in random old role players like Blake Griffin and Patty Mills and Goran Dragic. There was just no continuity with this team at all. And if you're Steve Nash, how are you supposed to build a rotation? How are you supposed to build a system? How are you supposed to build a culture when there's new guys playing for you every game? And like I said, a lot of that's not his fault. Kyrie Irving refused to get vaccinated, couldn't play most of the season. You know, they're trading James Harden for a guy who refuses to play. They're bringing in Seth Curry and Andre Drummond at the trade deadline, who you now have to implement into your system. I just think for Steve Nash, this was a chaotic coaching situation. And if he's fired from Brooklyn, he'll get a really good assistant job, maybe a head coaching job elsewhere. And I think he is loving life because Brooklyn is a SHIT show right now.
I mean,
the Kevin Durant injury during the regular season.
Yes, Kevin Durant also. That. I mean, yes.
For the record, that was the primary reason they fell from the 1 seed down to the 8 seed. But look, I don't think I could disagree anymore with Trevor. I could not disagree more. Like, look, here's the thing.
Oh my Lord.
When you look at strictly a basketball perspective, Steve Nash, I think, got absolutely destroyed on the coaching side of the series. Like, look, he seemed to random old role players. Goran Dragic he's a very good backup point guard on on any team in the league. The guy gave them double-digit points in 3 out of 4 games this series. He was really good. He was a really solid player through the whole series. He's a good player.
Swept.
Patty Mills is a really good shooter throughout the whole year. He was really good. Like, Seth Curry's an elite shooter as well. Like, look, Steve Nash didn't use his players correct. He played Blake Griffin sparingly. Blake Griffin, he's a really solid defender. He's a good 3-point shooter. Like, the guy plays high effort, high motor, and that he gave them a chance in this game 4. He was in my opinion, he was the sole primary reason. I told Jack and Trevor off the air, I said, if they win this game, it's because of Blake Griffin. He gave them the energy. No one was bringing energy. This team lacks some fire, some motivation. Blake Griffin brought that, and to play him less than 10 minutes a game in all of these games, really, he didn't play at all. And LaMarcus Aldridge got 0 minutes. The guy averaged almost 14 points a game in the regular season. He's a really good scorer, and he didn't play him at all. I think that's inexcusable. It was just terrible. I think it was terrible. What? You're playing Nick Claxton out there when he's 0 for 10 from the free throw line in a game. Why is he still in the game?
He's pretty good.
Outside of that, he did everything else.
Outside of that, he was good.
Andre Drummond is literally sub-zero IQ out on the basketball
He didn't play Drummond tonight.
No, I know, but in the other 3 games, he's playing him the primary center. I don't know. I think Steve Nash was a bad coach in the series. I think that he didn't know what he was doing going into the series, and then once they lost the first 2 games, he seemed like he had absolutely zero idea other than give it to KD and Kyrie. Just let them pass the ball the whole series. That seemed to be his plan.
Terrible strategy, but they didn't show up.
I think his rotations were I think they were really bad. And I think that sure, he's had a lot of problems off the court with his players that he can't control. And also I agree with Jack on Ben Simmons. The guy should honestly retire at this point. He's not going to play. He's just a nuisance for teams. What a waste of a trade. If he had actually played, Brooklyn probably would have won the trade because Harden really hasn't been all that great for Philly. They would have probably won the deal if Simmons actually played basketball, and he just won't. It's disappointing, but it's just I think that's pretty pathetic that he dodged game 4. What you want to say something? Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to jump in on this Steve Nash debate because I think both of you make really good points. I think first of all, straight fact, Steve Nash got outcoached in this series.
I agree with that. I do agree
without a doubt. Udoka absolutely just schematically was unable, or he was able to just outcoach Nash. And I think, but I also think you kind of got to give Nash some slack with what he's been through this season. Just with the trades, with the COVID situation, with the injuries. I ultimately don't think Nash gets fired after this year, but I think next year is a make or break year for him. If you think about it, this team was supposed to win the championship. They were the favorite for the NBA championship these last 2 years. And I mean, both years, you get injuries to KD or to Kyrie and Harden in the Milwaukee series. end up losing that in 7 because KD's foot is half a size too big. And this year you go through all the drama that you went through. I don't think I think the series specifically, not necessarily it's all on Nash because Kyrie and KD didn't show up, and that's who you're going to rely on in these games. But Nash should have come up with a better alternative plan, but also it's the cards that he was dealt. So I think he'll stick around. I think next year is going to be a make or break year, but ultimately I agree with both of you. Udoka coached him, and the situation that he's in is awful. So
Here's my point.
He'll stick around as long as KD and Kyrie let him. Like
here's my point,
they want him there, he'll stay.
This is my point on Nash.
Yeah.
Udoka and the Celtics, if we remember at the beginning of the year, the Celtics weren't that good. They were a 500 basketball team. But you know what? They had time to build chemistry. They had a rotation that they could stick to. They figured out how to play defense.
I mean,
they were able to build some continuity and a culture. When you have different guys playing every game and one guy refuses to get vaccinated and another guy gets injured, and then you're trading another superstar.
There's trades every year. I mean, I don't think that's a fair. Like, there's trades every year with every team, and there's turnover with trades.
If we're not going to act like Brooklyn had a normal year compared to most teams. Right?
Well, no, but Boston also has the fewest turnover out of most. Like they've had the same core guys for like years and years and years.
I agree, but they were struggling. I don't even think they barely made the playoffs last year.
Yeah, they got rolled by
this year.
Brooklyn.
They made the playoffs. But that's my point. You need time to build a system, build a culture. You need guys who actually play together day in and day out. It's hard when you have so many interchanging parts like Brooklyn did. I just think it's hard for Nash to actually build something when it's always changing, right? You're building 2 blocks and then you have to take one down. So I just think it's hard to build something.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Assuming before we move on, assuming there's like no turnover with like the major guys, Seth Curry, Kyrie, KD, I don't know, Claxton, Bruce Brown, whatever, the main guys, and Nash still struggles, like, would you then
yes
point to him? Okay.
I think if they can keep most of this team together, maybe adjust a few things in the rotation. I think Blake Griffin should get some more minutes. I agree with you guys there. I don't know about Aldridge. I know he has some health problems, so I'm not sure why he didn't play, but I think, health could have been an issue with him.
Maybe.
I agree. I think a lot of pressure is going to be on next year for Steve Nash. I think he's going to get some slack, but he's also going to get some heat, and I think he's going to get one more year. And at the end of the day, this series is more on KD and Kyrie than Steve Nash, in my opinion. They didn't show up. They didn't play well. KD was horrendous outside of tonight. He was okay. Kyrie was horrendous outside of a great game 1. They just got outplayed. Boston's best players outplayed Brooklyn's best players. I think it's as simple as that. And yes, we can argue Steve Nash didn't play Blake Griffin enough, but Blake Griffin was not going to be the difference in this series. He wasn't going to flip 4 games. He might have flipped 1 game, but I don't know. I think this is more on KD and Kyrie than it is on Steve Nash, but that's just my personal view.
That's fair. No, it's definitely fair. I mean, look, KD and Kyrie should probably take most of the blame for the series. They were really bad in 3 of the 4, each of them. But look, I mean, I'm glad to move on from this series. I was really wrong on this. Jack and I both were.
I wasn't.
Look, we can move on to a series that I've personally really enjoyed so far. I've had a great time last night. Let me tell you, Trevor wouldn't answer any phone calls if I called him, but I did not want to because I felt bad because the Suns lost again, folks. The Suns are tied 2-2 with the 35-win New Orleans Pelicans.
36.
Wow, 36. Oh, yeah. Okay. I actually was not sure if it was 35 or 36, and I was wrong. 36-win New Orleans Pelicans. Wow, tied 2-2. I mean, I almost don't even know what to say. I mean, I know Devin Booker got hurt, but I mean, imagine being tied with the Pelicans. None of us saw this coming. I don't know who wants to go ahead and start. What's gone wrong? How do they fix it? And can the Pelicans win this series?
I can start, and then I'll let Eden kind of be the good guy here because I'm gonna blame 95% of what's happened on my Phoenix Suns, right?
Okay.
And Devin Booker getting injured sucks. I get that. That's a huge loss. We're probably up 3-1 if he plays. But with that being said, there's no excuses for getting outworked, out-hustled, out-schematicked, out everything by New Orleans outside of the first half of game 1.
Outcoached.
Right? Their role players have played a lot better. Their stars have played better. Willie Green has outcoached the crap out of Monty in this series, and I'm going to call out some names. Cameron Payne, What have you done in this series? You are 0 for 12 from the three-point line in this series. I get you're not a great three-point shooter, but that is inexcusable. You've given us nothing. Jay Crowder, I still think DeAndre Ayton has more threes in this series than Jay Crowder. So Jay Crowder needs to shoot the ball better. I get it. He's exerting a lot of energy on the defensive end, but you got to make open shots. Landry Shamet, what the hell have you done in this series? You have been horrible. Torrey Craig finally scored in the fourth game of this series, and this is a guy that plays every game. Absolutely disgusting. And final thing I want to say, and this is why I said Willie Green is outcoaching the crap out of Monty. The Phoenix Suns have led every single game in this series at halftime. And what has happened? This is a 2-2 series. Willie Green is making the adjustments at halftime, and Monty is not. Monty is getting out-coached, and I still think he should be Coach of the Year because it's a regular season award. But if he goes down and loses this series, this will be the greatest upset in NBA playoff history. This will be the most pathetic loss of any team ever in the history of the NBA. Chris Paul, everybody who played in this series outside of Devin Booker should be completely ashamed of themselves. And I think if we lose this series, I think they should take away the Coach of the Year award from Monty. I think he should be disqualified from running because this has been a complete and utter shit show. And I will preface it with this. And this is why I said it's 95% Suns' fault. 5%, we got to figure out the officiating a little bit. And I'm not going to use that as an excuse. But I want to make an interesting point. Jack sent the tweet in a group chat earlier today. Game 4 between Memphis and Minnesota, the free throw disparity was like 42 to 23. Game 4 between Dallas and Utah, the free throw disparity was something similar. Game 4 between New Orleans and Phoenix, the free throw disparity was 42 to 15. I'm not saying it's rigged, and I'm not going to argue that. And I think anyone who says that is stupid, but I think this is an issue. And we see this all the time in NBA playoff series. When there's a team that's on the ropes or is down and is at home, they tend to get a lot more calls. And I think there are a few instances yesterday where there were complete and utter miscalls. Number one, what Herb Jones did to Chris Paul was about the same thing as what Jackson Hayes did to Jay Crowder. Jackson Hayes got ejected. Herb Jones, no call.
Chris Paul's a known flopper, sorry.
Number 2, on the 8-second violation, Jose Alvarado fouled Chris Paul probably 4 times, Eden, 3 times. What do you think? 3 times?
Get out of here.
It was a couple times. Yeah.
Get out of here.
Number 3, Jay Crowder, clean steal off of Brandon Ingram's leg in the fourth quarter, called a foul on Jay Crowder. The possession before, Herb Jones doesn't go straight up on a Jay Crowder layup, isn't called an and one. I just gave you 4 calls right there that should have been turned the other way. Now, I'm not going to say that's an excuse for how the Suns have played in this series because it's been pathetic, but it's 2-2 and we have a home game 5 and we still have everything out in front of us, right? Like if we get by this series, we'll get Devin Booker back and we're still in a great position to repeat as Western Conference champions. But there's a lot of pressure on our guys to play well tomorrow because I haven't seen it. New Orleans has been the better team. They have looked like the 1 seed, and I'll leave it to Eden.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot right there, and I think Trevor makes a lot of good points. The first thing I want to jump on, I'm not going to focus on this, but I do want to go back to the free throw disparity real quick. So Trevor brought up that point, 42 free throws to 15 free throws for the Phoenix Suns. The Suns were minus 22 in that category yesterday. The other stat that I want to look at with that is points in the paint for the game. And if you look at points in the paint, New Orleans had 54 points, a lot of points in the paint, right? You'd expect a lot of fouls with a lot of points coming from the paint. The Phoenix Suns had 56 points in the paint in that game. And Monty brought this up in his press conference.
He did.
He had more points in the paint than them. We're an aggressive team. And the foul disparity is that big. Like, I don't know. I also do think, well, we had a lot of fouls outside on the perimeter. We were trying to get in and pressure. We had a lot of guys in foul trouble. I'm not arguing that.
But they did the same thing. They do the same thing.
They did.
Alvarado does the same thing every possession.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get some more rip throughs. That's another thing Willie Green has coached him on, defending Chris Paul, which is interesting to see just coming from that side of the mind. But anyways, to move on from that point, I want to be a little bit more optimistic than Trevor was, and I'm going to put my phone away with all my stats to do so because the stats don't point that way. But after game 2, losing Devin Booker, we came on this podcast and we gave a review of what we thought of the first 2 games and what we saw for the rest of the series. And I sat here on the podcast and I said, we don't have Devin Booker. We're going to New Orleans. We're going to split in New Orleans, and it's going to be a best-of-3 series with 2 of those games at home in Phoenix. And I think everything still stands true. The one thing that I have not expected, which has been shown to me in this series, is the Phoenix Suns have no role players through the first 4 games.
Nothing.
Absolutely zero. And outside of Chris Paul scoring 28 points and 30 points in a game with 19 and 15 of those coming in the fourth quarter, the Phoenix Suns could be down 3-1. They could have even lost the series at this point without Chris Paul's big performances. And if you look at the 2 games that we won versus the 2 games that we lost, Chris Paul scored, I believe, a total of 58 points in the 2 games that we won and about 16 or so in the 2 games that we lost. And I think that's a big difference. We need, especially without Booker, we need someone who's going to take over the scoring and come in and take over a game. And that's what we've seen all season and all last year with Chris Paul and the Phoenix Suns as well. We're the best team come clutch time in the NBA. And outside of Chris Paul, I don't see that from this team. Outside of Chris Paul in 2 games, not even 4 of them. In 2 games, I don't see that from this team at all. That's one thing. But also I have hope that we'll be able to figure it out, especially being at home, playing in front of our home crowd. The role players need to step up. I need more from Cam Johnson. I need more from Cameron Payne. I need more from Landry Shamet, and I need more from Jay Crowder. Those are the guys who are going to have to make open shots as the defense sucks in, as we are driving to the paint and getting 50 points in the paint. Ayton's played well. McGee has played well. Chris Paul has played well. And I do want to give Mikal Bridges a shout out for clamping CJ McCollum yesterday. I think one of the major adjustments that we have to make, which we haven't made much of, and it's a 2-2 series. I think the biggest adjustment going forward is you have to put Mikal Bridges on Brandon Ingram.
I was literally about to interrupt you and say that.
and I understand why you're putting him on McCollum, because McCollum's got that Steph Curry running around the perimeter type game to him right now, especially with BI being the first option. Can Jay Crowder be the guy who's doing that? I don't necessarily think so for 48 minutes. I expect more of a Cam Johnson, Landry Shamet, Jay Crowder split there. But I think it's obvious Ingram has 30 points in the last 3 games. And you just saw what Mikal Bridges could do to CJ McCollum. Mikal Bridges was the runner-up for the Defensive Player of the Year this year, and you're not putting him on their best player. I think that's a mistake from Monty Williams, and I expect that to change in Game 5. And if it doesn't, then I would be completely shocked. And I would say, straight from a coaching and adjustments perspective, if you can't make that adjustment, you're not going to make any adjustment in this series. And you're basically saying we're better than you the way that we are. So I think that's not going to be like the deciding adjustment of the series. But I think looking at that and seeing if Monty makes that adjustment or not is going to show me a lot about his willingness to change. Mm-hmm. And as a Suns fan, I think if Bridges comes out on McCollum to start Game 5, that makes me a little nervous that Monty's not willing to adjust come the end of the series.
And I'm going to jump in real quick before you go, Ryan, but this is a great point. This is the one negative about Monty Williams. He's a great culture guy. He's a player's coach, right? Everybody loves him. He's a terrific man. He's been through a lot personally. He is very, very stubborn, and he doesn't like to change what he's doing. And look, how can I blame him for that? We won 64 games this year. You know, we set a franchise record for wins. We dominated the NBA in the regular season, had the best record by 8 games. So what we're doing was working. But here's the problem. When Brandon Ingram drops 35 on you 3 games in a row, that's when you need to make an adjustment, right? Like Game 2, I get it. He got hot. Okay. We're not going to panic. Game 3, he does it again. Maybe we should change it up. Game 4, he does it again, and you still haven't changed it up. That's being stubborn. And Mikal is the only guy we have that can guard Ingram's length. Ingram is so long. It's like Kevin Durant, and his shot is high. There's nobody in the NBA that can touch it, but Mikal is long enough to at least contest it and maybe affect it more so than Jay Crowder. And I get Jay Crowder is physical and wants to get into Brandon Ingram, but that's not working, right? That hasn't worked. I think you need to, I agree. I think you need to put McHale on Brandon Ingram. And look, Landry Shamet, Cam Johnson, Chris Paul, Torrey Craig, whoever it might be, you got 20, 24 fouls to split on CJ McCollum. You got 3 or 4 guys you can throw on him to at least slow him down. He hasn't been the guy that's taken over this series. It's Ingram. And there needs to be an adjustment. If you're not going to put McHale on Ingram, you need to do what Memphis was doing to Cat. Hard double. I mean, just hard double him and force somebody else to score. So, I mean, I said it, the lack of adjustments from Monty is a little frustrating. And this is one he absolutely needs to make, in my opinion, and Jack agrees. But yeah, it's going to be a stressful next 3 days because I've been sleeping, but all I'm thinking about is this series right now. I'm very nervous. So go ahead, Ryan.
Look, I've listened to you guys talk about this series for a little while now. And look, let me just say a few things. Look, the Phoenix Suns are going to win this series. You know, I've said it for a while now. Look, the series is close. It's 2-2. They have home court control. I mean, if you can't beat an 8 seed having 2 of your last 3 at home, I mean, you don't deserve to be a 1 seed. I'm sorry. I mean, that's just, I mean, come on. Like, look, you got to take care of business at home. You're the 1 seed. You have a good crowd. You know, you have a quality team. Role players got to step up. The role players have been terrible. You know, Cameron Payne was paid what, $30 million to what, not make a 3 in the playoffs? I mean, come on. I mean, that's terrible. Look, the role players have all been pretty bad. Ayton's been really good on the offensive end. I do want to say, Ayton's just getting obliterated on the defensive end, though. Like, I mean, Jonas dropped, 26? The guy's getting rebounds in every single game this series. He's getting, I mean, he had 5 in game 4. You know, I don't have the exact numbers for the other games in front of me, but I want to say it was quite a few, you know, in the other 3 games as well. I mean, he's getting a lot of rebounds. I want to see a little more at Ayton on the defensive end, but that's getting kind of picky. The main thing I want to say is Chris Paul, you know, you can see and maybe it's not even the age, maybe it's just the way they're playing him. He doesn't have another guy on his team right now who can take the ball and just like initiate and run an offense. Like he just doesn't have that with Booker out. And because of that, they're putting, Alvarado and, they're putting even, a few other guys on him throughout the game and they're wearing him down. You know, Trevor talks about, how they're just putting a guy, and I think we talked about this off the air, they're putting a guy, on him and making him run the whole floor with a guy pestering him.
With contact.
And that's, yeah, exactly. And that's what the Bucks did, with Drew Holiday, right? I think Dennis Schroeder did it to Chris Paul as well, however well that worked or not. But look, teams do it to Chris Paul, and it's working for the Pelicans right now. They're wearing him down. And they made this point inside the NBA. He's getting tired. He isn't playing, like Chris Paul in every game. He's going every other game right now, whether that's, and they said that it might be because he's too tired. Like he's putting up all these huge fourth quarters. And then the next game, he's just not showing up with the big shooting night, and the big scoring night. And it's like, they surmised, they're like, he's too tired to be doing this every night by himself. And I believe them. Like, it's hard when the guy's pestering you 100 feet down the floor or 95 feet down the floor. It's hard, and without Booker there to take some of the load off and take the ball handling, when he needs it, I think it's hard for Chris Paul. And I think that's my one concern for the Suns is like, if they keep pressing him, I think he'll have a big game 5 here, but game 6, can he show up without Booker, handling the ball all game long again, getting pressed all game long in an away game? I don't know. And so that's my concern. I actually think if I had to put money on it, I'd say the series goes all the way. I think it goes 7 games. I think it goes back to Phoenix for game 7. I do think Phoenix wins game 7, but I mean, I'd be concerned, the Chris Paul stuff is worrisome to me, just him getting tired, him getting, frustrated as anyone would with a guy like Alvarado. You have Herb Jones out there on the floor playing great defense, no matter who he guards, really. It's a concern. So that's my concern. And then also the rebounding has just been really bad. I mean, like you expected it, Ingram's long, Herb Jones, they have a lot of long guys, Jackson Hayes, Herb Jones, Valanciunas, a lot of length on the floor, and the Suns don't have as much length to match that. So you kind of expected it, but it's still frustrating to watch and still kind of a problem because that's, and when they're shooting hot, it's hard. When they're shooting hot, they get a kick out, they get a 3. I mean, that's probably a 5 or 6 point swing right there, considering if the Suns go down and score later, if they miss the shot. So that's like a big swing. And that's been a problem for the Suns in this series. So I don't know how you fix that. But you got to figure out a way. And last thing, before I toss it back over to one of you to, give whatever you have to say, the rookies for the Pelicans have just been fantastic. Like as rookies, I wouldn't think they were rookies. So if I'm watching this game, not knowing anything about the NBA season, Like, I wouldn't think Alvarado, Herb Jones, and Trey Murphy are rookies. Like, and I know Trey Murphy hasn't put up a lot of stats, but the guy's been good in minutes that he's played. He's impacted the game in scoring. He's just been a solid defender. He's a lot of length. He's done a lot of things well. Alvarado's obviously really pesky. And then Herb Jones is a great defender, and he made some shots. I mean, the guy only had He had 13 points in game 4, but he made a couple really tough shots. In my opinion, he had that one really tough hook shot / layup that was insane down the stretch. I remember that one distinctly. But anyway, I just want to say their rookies have stepped up and been fantastic. So, and when their rookies are playing better than your role players that have been around for 8 to 10 years, that's a problem, and that needs to change.
And one thing on the Herb Jones point, I was thinking about this yesterday watching him. He is out Mikal Bridges in this series, if that made sense.
Yes, that does make sense.
The guy picking up the ball, making the corner shot, slashing like Mikal does, and he has outplayed Mikal in Mikal's role in this series, which I just think I want to give him credit, and that's the only credit I'm going to give to New Orleans right now because, like they said, the series isn't over. We can give them credit after the series. So, anyways, I want to make a different point. I think Ryan made a lot of good points, but the one point that I want to talk about is we have a best-of-3 series from here on out. Phoenix has 2 of those 3 at home, and here's what I have to say about Game 5. Game 5 is a must-win for the Phoenix Suns, and let me tell you why. It's not a must-win in the conventional sense that if you lose this game, the series is over. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, looking at it from a 1 versus 8 perspective, the Suns have had this is the best record the Suns have had in their existence. They're playing a team that's 10 games under 500, a team that's coached by an assistant coach who used to be on the Suns staff last year. They have been outplayed outside of the first half of game 1. I think the scoring margin is the Suns are minus somewhere in the 40 to 50 range if you exclude the first half of game 1. Not even close. All of those things combined, Devin Booker's injury, everything combined, Chris Paul's age, and you can go down the line. Scott Foster reffing game 6. In all of those senses, it's an unconventional must-win for the Phoenix Suns. And if you go down 3-2, heading back to New Orleans against a young team with a ruckus crowd who thinks we could do the impossible, that is a terrible situation to be in if you're the Phoenix Suns. You have to win Game 5. Game 6, we'll see, and then you'll come back to Game 7 if you need to in the Valley. But for those reasons, from the idea of pressure, just from the idea of pressure and what's going on with each side, this team's coming off an NBA Finals. They are built to go back to the NBA Finals and win this year. They filled their holes from last year. Accounting for all of those things, this is a must-win game for the Phoenix Suns in Game 5. And to be honest, I think if they don't get it done in Game 5, they're done.
Over.
Whoever wins at this point, this doesn't mean anything, but whoever wins 2 games in a row in this series is going to win the series, in my opinion. So it's going to be the first team to do that. That doesn't mean much, but I just thought that was interesting. That wasn't something that I would have expected saying at any point in this series, but it really is coming down to pressure, momentum, and this young team believes that they can do it, and that's one of the scariest things in basketball is letting a young team who's unexperienced hang around.
I want to make another point on that. And Ryan, you remember this phone call I had with you after Game 1. It was actually maybe even after, I think it was after Game 1. I said to Ryan, Ryan, we won the game, but I'm concerned because they have belief. We didn't eliminate their belief from their, mentally, they still think they can beat us, right? We didn't beat them down. And look what happened in Game 2. Now they really believe. All right, we go back to New Orleans, we win Game 3. We didn't look that good. We grinded out of Game 3, got lucky because Chris Paul got hot. They're thinking to themselves, we win Game 4, we're fine. And then they come out and dominate Game 4 like that. Now they really, really believe. And it's not even a belief. It's almost an expectation. They think they're better than us. And they've been better than us in this series. And that's just what's so disheartening. And you guys, one more thing. And Ryan, you talked about how Chris Paul, he's too old, he's a little old to be having back-to-back magnificent games. And you're totally right about that. But that's what's so disheartening because our role players have left him out to dry. Shamet, Crowder, Payne, everybody outside of McGee and Ayton has completely abandoned Chris Paul in this series. They have been pathetic. And it's not even like we're asking them to do that much. I just want you to make wide open shots. That's all I want. Do your job and make wide open shots, particularly Shamet and Cam Johnson. They have missed so many, and Jay Crowder, but Jay Crowder's hot and cold. They've missed so many wide open three-pointers, and that's what they're paid to do. That is what they do best. They are three-point shooters. And the amount of wide open misses they've had in this series is what's another word for infuriating to watch? Because it's not even like we're asking you to play above and beyond what you can do. Just make open shots, and we haven't done that.
Yeah, I'm just going to say another thing. In my opinion, the biggest problem is Cameron Payne hasn't stepped up in this series. And also, I want to say JaVale McGee's played fantastic, by the way. But
he's been great.
I just want to say Cameron Payne's the reason that I'm concerned because Chris Paul needs a guy to take some of the pressure off of him. And who did you sign back for multiple years to fill that role? Like Cam Payne is there.
Cameron Payne earned that contract.
I agree with you. He was fantastic coming from the OKC, G League, barely making the team to all of a sudden getting a 3-year, $30 million deal with the Suns. I think it was. I mean, 19, good for him. Yeah. Sorry. But he deserved, he deserved it. It was a lot cheaper than I thought, but look, the guy's he's got to handle the ball. Like he has to take pressure off Paul. He has to hit threes. He has to bring the ball up the court. Like you need to put him out there with them. You do. Jay's not going to bring the ball up.
He's got to give us 12 points off.
I haven't paid enough attention. Have they run Paul with Payne at all in this series? I was not paying enough attention.
They did a little bit in game 3.
That needs to happen more.
That's another adjustment that I expect, especially with them picking him up full court.
Yeah.
No one other than Cameron Payne can help initiate the offense. So I do expect a little bit more of that.
But even if it's literally Cam Payne bringing it past half court and then giving it to Paul, that's literally all.
That's what they tried to do with guys like Crowder and Cam Johnson, have them bring the ball up the court and then get it to CP3. And it hasn't really hurt us that much. But the point of picking up 100 feet and 94 feet is to disrupt the flow of your normal, disrupt the flow and the timing of your normal offense. That's why the Pelicans and the Bucks do it, right? Because we saw in the regular season how good our offense was. The machine of the Phoenix Suns offense in the regular season was nearly impossible to guard at times, especially when we're making our open shots. Now you're putting a guy on Chris Paul 100 feet away from the hoop. It's taking him virtually 8 seconds to get it across half court every single time. Yeah. Another 5 seconds to get into your offense. Now you only have 10 seconds to run a normal offense that you usually have 18 to 20 to run. It disrupts the timing. It rushes you. It forces you into making, quicker decisions, which oftentimes can lead to turnovers or rush shots or whatnot. And I think the adjustment is you need to play Payne and Paul together because Payne can get by somebody. He's quick. He's fast. He can run up the court and get by people. And then if you want him to run a pick and roll, great. Or you get him the ball you get the ball to Chris Paul and let him run a pick and roll. That's also great.
Jack, anything else? I don't know if you have anything else you want to say. If not, that's fine.
My prediction for this series is if we lose game 5, it's 100% over. Even if we win game 5, I don't have confidence in us.
Come on. Look, what's your prediction? Give me a prediction right now. Because I think it's Suns in 7.
I'm gonna go Suns in 7. I think we'll grind out a couple of ugly wins, but I am not confident in that prediction.
I actually think you roll in game 5. Well, I think you win by 8 or 10 in game 5.
I think game 5, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I just hope we win game 5.
Jack, give me a prediction before we move on to some NBA award talk.
I want to say this is where these next 2 or 3 games is where our experience from last year has to come into play. And if we learned anything from making it to the finals last year and want to get back like we do, it's got to show right now, and we need it. And I'm not going to overreact to what has happened in the last 2 games because I expected us to split. So I'm going to stick with my Suns in 6, a little less confidence than I had for our podcast last week, but I don't want to overreact. I'm going to stick with Suns in 6.
Wow.
I might have to take Pelicans money line to win this series. I might make some money the way we're playing, but I'm being a little pessimistic. So
yeah, look, we'll see what happens. It's definitely been a fun series. outside of the Memphis Minnesota series, this has probably been the best series in the league right now. So I'm sure you guys didn't want that, but from a fan,
Did Devin Booker have to pull a
and
hamstring?
let me say this one more thing, and I'm sorry, I need to say one more thing. This is I'm glad Trevor just said that, because that's a lot of the reason, right? Injuries
We didn't
are
even talk about it.
massive factor in the NBA playoffs. Let me just say, it's probably the second biggest factor behind the teams actually playing. Like, it's such an important thing for a team to make it to the finals, injury luck. That's so important. And I took it for granted when I had LeBron on my team. We just went to the finals every 4 years. It wasn't easy, and players got hurt. Stars got hurt for the Cavs, but LeBron pushed them through. But that's not the case for any team in the NBA right now, or any NBA team.
And you normally. Know what? The Bucks lost Chris Middleton, and all they did is win by 50.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is, without Chris Middleton, they'll probably struggle more against Boston than they would if they had him. Like, right? Yeah, my point is, it's like these two teams were really healthy last year, outside of Chris Paul hurting his shoulder in the first series. And the Milwaukee Bucks had no injuries, and that's the difference, I think. Booker getting hurt now, right? Last year you had a lot of injury luck for the Suns. You can cut it any way you want. Point is injury luck plays a big role in making it all the way. It's not like a top thing, but it's definitely a big
true.
Thing.
That's what Dan Patrick said last year, and it's 100% fact. The healthiest team is going to get there.
And the fact that Devin Booker had it going so good in game 2, 31 at the half. Are you kidding?
And lost that game.
And then we lose the game because he pulls a hamstring early in the third quarter, and we can't make up for his offense.
Can I just say, who's the healthiest team right now? The Golden State Warriors, baby. Yeah, they're healthy. But anyway, look.
Yeah,
I
just want to say, if the Suns lose in the first round, then I'm sorry, Chris Paul, you were the most cursed player in the history of the NBA. It will just never happen if we can't get past New Orleans this year.
Yeah, he's had a tough go of it.
It just won't happen if that's the case.
It would not happen. But anyway, let's move on. We wanted to talk about some NBA awards, I think, if that's okay. We wanted to talk about. Trevor's gonna laugh. Look, which one do you want to talk about first, Trevor? Which one are you talking about? You want to talk about most improved player? Who won that? You want to talk about the player of the year?
Let's get the Cleveland Cavalier discussion.
All right, fine. Look, we'll talk about most improved player. Look, I'll be quick, okay? You guys already heard me earlier in this podcast kind of talk about Ja Morant a little negatively here, and I just want to say, how did this guy win most improved player? Look, I can't believe it. It's like, really? Like, did we all not know he was a superstar in the making? Like, I don't think he's a superstar right now, but like a lot of people think he is. Did we not know he was an all-star capable player? Did we not know he was the best player on his team who was going to carry them to the playoff? Did we not know this? I just don't understand. Like, the expectation before the year and the expectation now has not really changed all that much. And he won most improved player. I don't know. It bugs me a lot because you have guys like Jordan Poole who have elevated their game a lot. You have guys like Desmond Bane on his own team who elevated his game a lot over the year. And you have guys like Darius Garland, my boy from Cleveland, who went from the worst player rated in the league as a rookie 2 years ago to an all-star now. The worst rated player in the league. And that's just like, and I guess that's 2 years, but like still last year, I mean, a massive improvement. Like, no, he was a fringe starter in those conversations. Is Sexton better than Garland? Come on, that's conversations laughed away now. He's an all-star. He's going to be an all-star starter at some point in the next couple of years. And I just find it laughable that he wasn't even in number 2, much less the winner. Desmond Bane, not even in the top 3. Jordan Poole, not even in the top 3. I just thought that award was a joke. I thought that was a joke. I thought
who were the top 3?
It was
Garland,
Morant, Dejounte Murray, and then Garland. 1, 2, and 3. And for the record, Murray, I believe, honestly, like had a little bit of a worse year from last year. Numbers wise, and it's just, I don't know. Whatever. It bugs me a little bit. Like, he is what he was last year, and he was whatever. I don't know. I think this award was messed up. I don't think it was correct, and I think that Garland should have won it. Or if he didn't win it, I think Desmond Bane should have won it. I think the wrong guys are in the top 3, and I think that Ja, being the media darling, got it because everyone talks about how cool Ja is, and it bugs me. I didn't think he deserved the award.
Eden?
I'll go quickly on this. My 2 favorites would have been Jordan Poole, and I think a big reason why is you can look at not only their own stats but also how their teams elevated from the previous year to this year.
Desmond
Um,
Bane.
Desmond Bane as well, but I think I just looked up Bane's numbers. Bane went from 9 to 18 points, which he doubled his points. Great for him. Played well. But if you look at
Same.
Ja Morant going from 19 a game last year to 27 a game this year,
That is
I think
impressive.
that's an 8-point jump. And also, you're jumping from 19 points a game versus jumping from 9 points a game, let alone the improved shooting number, the slightly improved shooting numbers, as well as what he does for that team facilitating. Now, another
Win
debate
more
you can
without
get
him.
into is how many games do you play? Do you have to play a certain number of games in order to win this award? And I think that's a legitimate debate, but I think they gave it to the right guy. And if it wasn't going to be Ja, it would have been Jordan Poole, in my opinion. I think just it was obvious that he took a significant leap and he took his team from a play-in game 8 seed last year all the way to the number 2 seed in the West this year. And I think I'm not upset that they gave it to Jordan, or not to Jordan Poole, to Ja Morant. As for Darius Garland, he improved. He was an all-star this year. Good for him. He would not have been my most improved player though.
All right, Trevor.
I'm like, after hearing your arguments, I'm like in between the both of you because I agree. I get the argument for Ja, but I get the argument against Ja. And I think we're also weighing the fact that Ja has struggled to score in these last couple of postseason games. And I think that might be clouding our judgment a little bit because look, it is a regular season award. And Eden makes a very good point. It is hard to jump when you're already scoring 19 a game, and in one season you jump 8 points to 27. That's hard to do. I don't think a lot of people can do that in this league. And it goes the same way with Desmond Bane, right? When you're averaging 9 a game and your role is elevated on a team, it's not unheard of to double your production, right? That's great. He doubled his production. But if he went from 9 to 15, I would say that would have just been a pretty pedestrian jump that we see from a lot of average role players in this league. So would I have given it to Ja? I don't know. I like the Jordan Poole argument too. And I also I like it. The more I think about it, the more it makes sense because this guy went from what, G League, being the worst pick in the draft, as someone said when he got picked.
Okay, well that
I'm just saying to a guy that's probably going to be an all-star next year. I think there's a very solid argument for him. There's a solid argument for Desmond Bane, but I do agree that Josh should have gotten it over Desmond Bane.
Oh.
And I think there's a solid argument for Darius Garland using Eden's logic. We talk about the Cavs doubling their wins this year, right? And that was with all the injuries that they had. Colin Sexton being hurt the entire year, Rubio out most of the year, Jared Allen got hurt, Mobley got hurt, Rondo was in and out of the lineup. So for Darius Garland to double his team's wins, albeit in a 10-game longer season, so maybe it's whatever. He doubled his wins. They were very close to making the playoffs. He was an all-star. He elevated his game in terms of scoring and distributing. He's still not a great defender, but hey, he can't be good at everything in this league.
At 22.
There's a strong argument for Darius Garland as well. I agree. DeJounte Murray, no way in hell was he the most improved player this year. He was already good at basketball.
Yeah, exactly.
He wasn't terrible last year.
Agreed.
And I think Ja made a very nice gesture. Ja putting the most improved award on Desmond Bane's, like, I don't even know, locker or something like that. I thought that was a very nice gesture. And I don't.
It was in his kitchen.
It was in his kitchen. Yeah.
It was in his kitchen. Okay, I had no idea where it was. I just know.
I just want to say I would love to play with a guy like that. Someone as selfless as him.
Yeah, I agree.
That move reminds me a lot of what Lamar Jackson did with his MVP. Those are guys you just want to play with.
100%. And yeah, I also agree with the idea that Ja partially got it because he is the media darling and he's all over our screens. He's all over Instagram. He's all over ESPN, his dunks.
You remember back in his rookie year, he had a missed dunk and they would show like, oh, he almost made this.
Wasn't that on Kevin Love? Wasn't that on Kevin Love?
Yes, it was Kevin Love. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah, he missed the dunk over Kevin
this is a larger argument we can get into another day. It's how do you fix the NBA award system? Do you take it away from the media? Because the media ultimately decides who wins these awards, and it's not players and coaches.
I would say players and coaches, let them vote. Or executives, like a combination of all three. I think they'd probably give a more accurate sense.
I think media should have a presence. I just don't think they should be.
Well, I don't know if they should. I mean, I don't know. But look, that's a conversation for another day. You're right.
Yeah,
Look,
I
at the
agree.
end of the day, I just think that the expectation for Ja was already pretty high. I don't know. I think the expectation was already there, but that's whatever. It's fine. We agree to disagree. Look, we can move on to this next award, and honestly, it's pretty cut and dry for me. This is Defensive Player of the Year. Marcus Smart got it, the first guard since Gary Payton got it in 1996, I think. It's been forever. And let me just say, he deserved it. I don't have too much of a take on this. It was him or it was who? Mikhail, really? We're the only two play. I'm trying to think.
Or Rudy Gobert.
Rudy
Gobert.
or Giannis, right? I mean, Giannis is always sitting there in the running, I suppose.
It was Gobert. Gobert was the third finalist, I think.
He really was.
Guy who couldn't stay on the floor in the playoffs last year. Yeah.
Anyway, look, at the end of the day, I don't have much of an issue with this. I'm going to laugh because the Suns didn't get another award, just like the Cavs. Hey, the Suns and the Cavs never get awards. It is what it is. But look, I mean, good for Marcus Smart. He annoys me. I've not liked him ever since he was at Oklahoma State. He's just like an arrogant player. I don't know. He just bugs me. He's one of those guys who you'd like on your team, but you don't like playing against. Yep. And it's just like, that's kind of how I feel. Like he just annoys me. Playing against him for years in the playoffs, I never really cared for him. But hey, he's a great player. He's a gritty player. He's become a really good offensive player too. Like he's changed his game a lot. Like I gotta give him credit. But hey, I guess good for him winning Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, I know you guys probably have a little more to say because Mikhail didn't win it, but
I don't have much to say, so I'll go real quick. Marcus Smart's been a great defender in this league for years now, and it seems to me that Mikhail is going to be on the same path as Marcus Smart. And so I think, if he needs an extra year or two to establish himself and then he eventually wins it, I don't have an issue with it. I didn't watch Marcus Smart as much as I watched Mikal Bridges this year, but what I want to say is Mikal is so integral to the Phoenix Suns winning, picking up the best defender, playing every single game, and he guards him the entire length of the floor, around the perimeter, anything. And he can also guard every position on the floor. He can guard one, he can guard five. So I'm happy that he ended up as runner-up for this award because he's finally getting the credit that he deserves. I would have loved to see him win it. I didn't watch enough Marcus Smart, so I can't make the argument between Smart and Bridges. Thank God he was above Gobert because I would have had an absolute frenzy.
Same.
But I just hope that this means that in a year or two down the line, he's going to get the award, and then I'd have no issue with it.
Trevor?
Yeah, I mean, my only issue is I wish Mikal won. I haven't watched enough Marcus Smart to really come on here and have a great argument against him winning the award. I've seen what Mikal does to other team's best player, and we're seeing it with CJ McCollum, the way we saw it with Steph Curry, right? Like the way he can just neutralize all-stars is incredible to me. And I'm sure Marcus Smart does the same thing for his team. But my only grievance with this award is that Rudy Gobert was a finalist. I've been trying to say this, and I say this to you guys all the time. This guy is a defensive liability in the playoffs.
It depends on the team he's playing, but
okay,
sure.
All right. If the other team plays,
if you're switching, you're gonna switch on to him and go at him. Like
run a pick and roll with Rudy Gobert, get a switch, have him play drop. He's just so limited defensively. He's a great rim protector, but he is so limited outside.
Hey, he had the best box plus minus out of any Utah Jazz player in the starting lineup tonight.
What was it? Minus.
What does that mean?
Yeah. Hey, Donovan Mitchell's a cool minus 32 or something like that. He was real nice.
I'm just saying I could rip on Rudy Gobert just because I saw what happened with the Clippers last year and Terrence Mann, dropping 39 on him because he refused to go outside of the paint to guard him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have an issue with Marcus Smart winning. I wish my guy Mikal won. But Mikal's going to get this award. He's going to win this one year. He is a tremendous defender. He can guard, as Jack said, 1 through 5. You can switch ball screens with him. He can fight over ball screens. He can contest shots. He's long. He's great laterally. I don't know. He has it all. Marcus Smart is tough, takes charges, is kind of the grit and identity of a defensive team. And it was a toss-up. Mikal got second. Marcus Smart got first, right? I'm wearing my Boston green, so go Marcus Smart. But I wish my guy Mikal got it.
Look, I I don't know. That about
Rudy
wraps it up.
Gobert, bro.
I do want to say before we wrap this up, I want to shout out my boy Donovan Mitchell here. Minus 38 box plus minus in a in a 35-point loss. No, what is it? Sorry, a 20. I can't do math. A 25-point loss. He was a minus 38 box plus minus. Real good game from my boy Donovan Mitchell.
Listen,
Round of applause
UConn 7,
to him.
baby. UConn 7.
I will say, hey, future Cavalier Donovan Mitchell. I can't wait till you're the second option on the Cavs. I'm looking for actually third option, mine Evan Mobley. Looking forward to him wanting out of Utah, coming to Cleveland. I would hate Utah too. Who wants to play there? Go lose to Dallas and come to Cleveland.
I got one more thing to say too.
Yeah.
Last week on the pod, Ryan and I made a bet. I said the Sixers would win in 5 or less. They did not. I got Venmo out right now. I'm gonna request him right after this. But the one thing I want to say,
he's gonna pay me.
Send it to him. I always mix it up, anyways. The one thing I want to say is, if Doc Rivers and the Philadelphia 76ers blow a 3-0 lead,
it's
he
3-2.
should be banned from the NBA, like ever.
Can I also
blow
say
2-3-1 leads and to be the first coach to ever throw a 3-0 lead away?
Yep.
He should be. How is this dude a top 15 head coach of all time?
Unbelievable.
He should be gone. The city of Philadelphia will burn down. I'm here. I am concerned for my safety. I hope I get out before that happens. I am staying far, far away from the city of Philadelphia if they lose in Game 7, unless I'm at Game 7. Who knows?
Oh, boy. You got to be careful. I do want to say also, Embiid, I don't want to hear any more trash talk if he loses this series. I don't want to hear any MVP. I deserved MVP. Get out of here. If you choke this 3-0 lead, that's pathetic. Anyway, I will laugh. I will laugh. It'll be awesome. And then my Toronto Raptors will win, so that'd be great. But I don't know. Trevor, you have any shout-outs before we wrap this up right here?
The Venmo.
No.
I'm just so disheartened.
Speechless.
I'm gonna shout out Willie Green.
Wow.
What an amazing job this guy has done. And he deserves a lot of credit, right? This Pelicans team was 1-12 to start the year.
3-16. Yeah.
3-16, and he got them to the playoffs, beat a Clippers team in the 8-seed game, and now he is taking my Suns to at least a 6-game series. All of us think it's going to go 7, except Jack. Jack's living in La La Lando. I was kidding. And he deserves a shout out. And you know what? Maybe we should have seen this coming. This guy was teammates with Chris Paul on the New Orleans Hornets when Monty was the coach 10 years ago. So this guy knows Chris Paul and Monty Williams better than Chris Paul and Monty Williams know themselves. So maybe we should have expected this, right? And I think Ryan made a point. I think, Ryan, did you text this where it's like, the whole reason the Pelicans are in this series is because of Willie Green? Was that you who said that?
Probably. I wouldn't be. I don't remember.
Maybe it was one of my other son's friends.
Maybe.
That's besides the point. I want to shout out Willie Green, and I want to give another shout out to how pathetic the Phoenix Suns have been. Landry Shamet, Jay Crowder, Cameron Payne, Torrey Craig. Please hop on the first flight to Shanghai if you lose this series with the way.
Hey, Trevor, honestly, I think they just want a quick trip to Cancun is what they want. And I'll tell you, I'll be the first to book it for them. Oh, boy. Wouldn't that
I got one more thing I want to
join Kyle Kuzma and play for the Shanghai Sharks.
I got one more thing I want to read before we end the podcast. I think it'd be a perfect way to end it. This was a tweet I saw today, and I think I sent this to you guys. Tiger Woods nearly lost his leg and his life and had several back surgeries, and he even played before Ben Simmons did this year. That's how I want to end the podcast. Ben Simmons, you are pathetic. Almost as pathetic as the Phoenix Suns have been in this series.
T-Dub.
Suns in 6, baby.
Wow. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this podcast. I hope everyone enjoyed, and we'll be back next week with more NBA talk. We'll talk about some more series, and hopefully we'll have an NFL draft special out for us at the end of the week, because we have the NFL draft coming up this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It feels like it's just kind of come on abruptly, but here it is. So yeah, hopefully we'll have that out later in the week as well.
Go Celtics, baby! I'm a Celtics fan now. I'm on the bandwagon,
and that disgusts me. So I'm going to wrap up this podcast, and yeah.
Jason Tatum for MVP.
Go Pelicans.